Allora, gente, ci sono state pubblicate recentemente, oltretutto, delle anteprime per Silent Hill F. A quanto pare, alcuni della stampa hanno avuto modo di provarlo in anteprima, anche della stampa italiana, però ho voluto prendere IGN, che così abbiamo il riferimento generalista, ok? E anche perché così non rubiamo visite a Every Eye o altri italiani, ok? Che con le reaction c'è sempre questa dinamica, perciò preferisco prendere sempre cose estere, anche se è più comodo ovviamente sentirle in lingua italiana. Quindi, ragazzi, c'è il video di IGN che è poco più di una decina di minuti che mi farebbe piacere vedere insieme, d'accordo? Perciò vediamo un po', perché io ho delle buone aspettative nei confronti di questo gioco e un grossissimo dubbio, perlomeno per quanto riguarda me. Perciò sono molto curioso. Come al solito, via l'audio, ecco qua. A sto giro mettiamo i sottotitoli in inglese in italiano automatici, che valgono quello che valgono, ma perlomeno si capisce grosso modo. E va bene. Allora, Silent Hill F. Dopo averlo provato 5 ore, ecco che cosa ne pensiamo. Bene, quindi l'hanno provato per 5 ore e ci sanno dire.
運転手さんいませんか?
As someone who loved Bloober Team's 2024 remake of Silent Hill 2, I'm happy to report that while being developed by an entirely different developer, Silent Hill F boasts that same level of quality and polish.
Ok, e questo è già una buona cosa. Era uno dei miei dubbi, lo standard qualitativo.
From story to world building, from graphics to combat and exploration, Taiwan-based developer Neobards has created an experience that meets the high bar set by the Polish developer, albeit in a drastically different setting. As I started walking the dense yet deserted streets of Ebiskauka, it was immediately apparent just how detailed and well realized this fictional remote town in the mountains of rural Japan in the 60s is. With an immersive over-the-shoulder view and no
Graficamente c'è di meglio, ma è bello comunque, non mi dispiace.
Story through its visuals. Ebisugaoka is undoubtedly one of the most impressive contemporary Japanese townscapes I've ever seen in a video game, and that comes from someone who has lived in Japan for the majority of his life and loves games like Shenmue, Persona, and Ghostwire Tokyo.
Ah, ok,
One of the few
perfetto.
minor issues I had with the Silent Hill 2 remake was that the majority of its playtime is spent inside buildings and facilities. While these functioned as well-designed dungeons packed with horrifying enemies to fight and intricate puzzles to solve, the increase in volume compared to the 2001 original made it feel like exploration of the actual town of Silent Hill was limited. And so I was pleasantly surprised that the vast majority of my playtime with Silent Hill F was spent exploring Ebiskauka, which oozes with atmosphere. Files and other documents scattered throughout the town add context to Ebiskauka, which flourished as a mine town during its heyday. Now it has become a largely forgotten village, and its people are stuck in old ways, such as favouring traditional healthcare methods over modern medical science, and being overly devout to the Shinto deity Inari. The context of Ebiskauka and its people immediately feel like they are an integral part of Silent Hill F's cohesive story, which made me eager to go off the beaten path and obtain every
Mi sta
The
convincendo.
game starts after protagonist Hinako, a female high school student, runs away from home after being scolded by her drunk father. Walking the empty streets of Ebiskauka, heading to the local candy store to meet up with Hinako's fellow high school friends, feels like an authored walking simulator reminiscent of games like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Of course, it doesn't take long until Hinako and her friends discover
Quello è il parere, quello è il paragone.
Before you know it, Hinako is holding an iron pipe in her hands, an iconic weapon of the series. Ebiskauka then gradually proves to be not just suited for a captivated walking simulator experience, but also the perfect setting for a horror game, as its narrow alleys and staircases are ideal to hide enemies behind corners, while also functioning as a maze for the player to get lost in. In some instances, doors left ajar and open windows invite Hinako inside traditional tatami-floored houses, where she will have to solve simple puzzles in order to make her way through to the next area. These puzzles play out in an unconventional way. One puzzle, for example, had me obtain keys to a locked door, but there was nothing noteworthy inside. Then, as I went back to the corridor, another door suddenly swung open, which gave me the chills. Silent Hill F's scenario writer, Yukishi07, sees Japanese horror as a subgenre that doesn't so much rely on threats to the protagonist's life, but rather makes you feel uncomfortable by creating situations that feel off. When you think about it, Silent Hill is a series known for just that. While there isn't a lack of life-threatening encounters, some of this series' most uncomfortable moments are in conversations with its outright weird characters. In Silent Hill F, Hinako and her friends are trying to find a way to escape the haunted town of Ebisugaoka. Interactions with these friends seem normal at first, but then suddenly they say something or do something that catches you off guard. Also, in typical Silent Hill fashion, puzzles often reveal something about Hinako herself or the world she inhabits. A puzzle on a misty rice field has you examine scarecrows in order to learn the direction you should be heading, which is connected to a childhood trauma of Hinako getting lost and being afraid of the scarecrows. During my playthrough, puzzles never felt too difficult. Hints provided by files you obtain never make the solution too obvious, while still giving the player an idea of what they have to do. Silent Hill F has difficulty settings for both its combat and puzzles, and while Konami advised me to play on story mode for both, I stubbornly chose normal mode as I wanted to take on a challenge. While the difficulty of the puzzles never overwhelmed me, combat proved to be a bit more demanding. Silent Hill F's combat relies entirely on melee attacks. Hinako can obtain all sorts of weapons ranging from iron pipes to kitchen knives and baseball bats, but no guns come into play. With some exceptions, these weapons are not obtained through story beats, but are scattered throughout Silent Hill F's world like other resources, and Hinako can carry up to 3 weapons at a time. As you wield iron pipes and stab at enemies with knives, you will notice that the game has weapon durability. It is a nice touch that weapons that are about to break actually
cercando di farmi un'idea sul combattimento.
A bent pipe or a broken bat. This also functions as a hint to the player, which Hinako will acknowledge by mentioning that she should fix it. Weapons can be fixed by using a repair kit, but these are so scarce that on many occasions you will have to say goodbye to your new favorite weapon. While weapon durability is often regarded as a burden in games, it works here, as finding a new weapon and repair kits quickly becomes an integral part of the resource management that the survival horror genre is known for, especially since you won't be having to
questo c'era da aspettarselo.
A clever system allows you to turn in your resources for an in-game currency at save points, which can be used to increase your stats or obtain new amulets that can be equipped to give you certain buffs. That means that if you are careful and don't waste your resources, leftovers can be turned into something useful, which feels like a great reward to a well-planned expedition. Combat itself has a similar feel to Silent Hill 2's close-range combat. You can dodge enemy attacks with the DualSense's circle button, while you can activate light and heavy attacks with R1 and R2 respectively. Your limited reach and lengthy attack motions give a realistic, weighty feel to combat. Heavy attacks especially are slow and need to be timed well, contributing to the feeling that Hinako is just a teenager with limited strength. What sets Silent Hill F's combat apart from Silent Hill 2's more limited melee combat is the implementation of timed dodges and counterattacks. The latter
non ci sono armi da fuoco, ve l'ha proprio detto.
Enemies briefly show a sign
Sta mostrando sempre gli stessi combattimenti, perlomeno uno li può vedere meglio.
Games of the likes of Sekiro, you will likely have a hard time reacting. That's where the focus mode comes in, which can be triggered by holding L2. Sadly, we don't have any footage of it, but when in focus mode, enemy signs for counterattacks appear for longer, while also charging up a power attack that staggers an enemy. That means you might head into focus mode with the intention of going for a counterattack, but find yourself switching to a power attack when it charges before the enemy shows an opening. Focus mode is tied to Hinako's mental energy gauge, which exists separately from her stamina and health bar. Interestingly, the upper limit of her mental energy decreases when enemies do something that scares her, or when she is frightened by a certain event, connecting the gameplay to the story and Hinako's mental state. Luckily, there are items that can recover the upper limit of your mental energy gauge, but Hinako's stamina is limited too. When she runs out of stamina and mental energy, she can become so frightened and tired that she won't even be able to move for a while. Managing her energy resources, therefore, is key to survival.
Okay.
Fighting one regular enemy is fairly manageable, but when confronted by multiple enemies, running away often felt like the best option, especially since enemies don't give experience points or drop resources. Combat was fun enough that I found myself actively engaging in combat even if there wasn't a real benefit to it, beyond being able to explore the environment more freely. While keeping combat engaging and complex, Silent Hill F does a great job in making the player feel weak. The game cleverly incorporates this by having what seems to be a boss battle at first actually play out as a sequence in which the player has to find an escape route. Another iconic element to the series is the existence
Interessante.
of a
Va
alternate world,
bene,
which is present in
mi
Silent
sto
Hill
facendo
F as
un'idea.
well. Hinako is occasionally transported to a different dimension that shows a more traditional Japan, where a mysterious masked figure guides her through the grounds of various shrines. Here, Hinako obtains traditional Japanese weapons such as the naginata, a pole weapon with a curved blade on the end,
Armi
similar to a
completamente
glaive or
diverse.
halberd that is known to be mostly used by women. Weapons that Hinako finds in this alternate world don't break, but Hinako won't be able to carry them over to Ebisugaoka.
Mannaggia.
It was in this realm that I encountered the main boss of my playtime, which proved much more difficult than I had anticipated. Even with my full understanding of the combat mechanics and systems, its long reach, hard to predict attack patterns, and multiple stages required significant trial and error. The boss took me nearly an hour to beat, but gradually learning how to take on the boss was a welcome challenge that never felt unfair. For reference, my colleague was playing on story mode and defeated the boss on his second try, but an acquaintance from another media outlet who was also playing on story mode didn't manage to defeat the boss at all and ran out of time. While he didn't specifically mention the Souls-like genre, series producer Motoi Okamoto says that Silent Hill F's combat was inspired by the current popularity of more difficult action games. With multiple difficulty settings, Silent Hill F is by no means a Souls-like, but its boss design shares a similar learning curve that ultimately results
Ecco,
in
è,
great
è
feeling of
esattamente quello che stavo
satisfaction.
pensando. Mannaggia.
The last part of my demo took place inside a school, which was essentially a dungeon similar to Silent Hill 2's aforementioned apartment buildings, hospitals, museums, and hotels. Upon entering the school, Hinako obtains a map of the building, which the player will have to use to navigate their way through. Luckily, Hinako is just as diligent a note-taking enthusiast as Silent Hill 2's James, so whenever you learn that a door is locked or that there is a passage somewhere, it will be noted for you on the map. Inside the school, I
Oh,
have to
che
solve a
bello.
multitude of puzzles
Io
in order
perdo
to find
l'orientamento
keys
in
to
un
reach different
secondo.
classrooms and floors while fighting and running away from enemies along the way. According to Okamoto, the average playtime for Silent Hill F will be about 12 or 13 hours, which should indicate that I've played through roughly 1/3 of the game. While I don't know how things will go from here, so far the game's balance between town exploration and interior facilities feels like an improvement over the Silent Hill 2 remake. While the first 5 hours of the game felt like they were structured linearly, Silent Hill F has multiple endings, like many other games in the series, including the famous UFO ending.
Va bene, anche la
The time of
durata.
Silent Hill F was promising, to say
Secondo
the
me ci
least.
sono alcune
Its
persone che
world
rimarranno un po'
building and
deluse
story
dalla
had me so
durata,
intrigued
ma
that I
credo
still
che
think
dipenda
back on my brief
molto
visit to Ebisugaoka almost a week
da
later.
com'è
Ebisugaoka just feels like the
quello che
perfect
stai
fit for
giocando.
psychological horror narrative, and all of Silent Hill F's systems and mechanics complement the setting. Series composer Akira Yamaoka's soundtrack also does a stellar job in making the player feel uncomfortable throughout. Silent Hill F seems to be a horror game that gets everything right. If, like me, the Silent Hill 2 remake was one of your favorite games of 2024, Silent Hill F has the potential to become a serious Game of the Year contender when it releases for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on September 25th.
Non è neanche così tanto lontano. È fra poco meno di 2 mesi.
For more scary stuff, keep it locked on IGN.
Ok, allora ragazzi, io vi dico,
でもさ、シュウ君もああいうの好きでしょ。興味ねえよ。
ok, allora gente, io fin da quando è stato presentato Silent Hill F e è stato anche approfondito direttamente dagli autori, se ne è parlato a lungo, quello che hanno mostrato nei trailer, diciamo, lato azienda, io mi sono subito convinto che il gioco doveva essere molto solido in quanto storia, ambientazione e atmosfera. Vuol dire che secondo me, da quello che stavano mostrando, il gioco avrebbe convinto assai dal punto di vista di come era disegnato, ok? Nelle sue caratteristiche principali ferme. Ma quello che mi spaventava di più, considerando che l'avevano dato da fare a uno studio nuovo di Taiwan, cioè nuovo insomma, che se non sbaglio non aveva mai fatto una cosa del genere o che non aveva mai curato un Silent Hill, e che Konami non è che sia esattamente il top per quanto riguarda l'assegnazione delle cose, anche se con Bloober Team hanno fatto un buon lavoro e stanno venendo fuori delle cose buone, ma la reputazione degli ultimi anni non è stellare. Io avevo un tantinello paura che questo Silent Hill sarebbe stato ispirato artisticamente ma povero tecnicamente. Non so se mi spiego, ok? E da quello che ho visto qui, da questa preview, in realtà dal punto di vista tecnico, di gameplay semplice, cioè di esplorazione, puzzle solving, eccetera, sembra onestamente convincente. Bello da vedere, funzionale, le animazioni mi sembrano ok, o belle. Perciò, bene, così. La cosa che ancora mi dà un po' da pensare, però, è il combat system. Per due ragioni. Primo, è più presente di quanto immaginassi, cioè si combatte più di quanto immaginassi, cosa che ho letto che ha fatto un po' storcere il naso ai fan storici della saga. A me importa poco, non sono un fan storico di Silent Hill, neanche un po', e mi interessa il gioco così com'è, sia che si combatta di più che di meno. L'importante è come si fa. Ma vedendo i combattimenti come sono, ho ancora i miei dubbi su quanto siano soddisfacenti pad alla mano e siano stati ben pensati. O magari sono stati tecnicamente ben pensati, ma poi il risultato del divertimento oggettivo magari potrebbe lasciare un po' a desiderare. Chi ha fatto questa preview ha detto di no, che in realtà il combattimento è abbastanza soddisfacente, ma essendo io un giocatore molto legato al game feel, non so quanto possa essere affidabile questa cosa e quindi perdonatemi se ancora mantengo un po' di dubbio al riguardo. Detto questo, però, dopo aver visto questa preview, sono più convinto di prima di questo Silent Hill. F. Mantengo ancora un po' di perplessità riguardo ad alcune cose che potrebbero potenzialmente essere importanti e soprattutto che potrebbero essere molto importanti per un giocatore come me. Però onestamente il gioco promette bene, ragazzi. Già, e lo dico da non fan di Silent Hill né del genere horror, come ben sapete, ma sembra figo. Sembra essere molto pensato in una certa maniera per offrire un'esperienza autenticamente di horror giapponese e sembra essere ispirato e anche ben eseguito come opera. Speriamo che lo sia in ogni sua parte. Speriamo che lo sia anche nelle cose che mi danno un po' da pensare e vediamo un po' se così va. Ecco, bella, Roll Duke, hai detto una cosa giusta. Chris, in Silent Hill il gameplay è sempre stato un po' così, in parte anche voluto, visto che voglio darti l'idea di giocare con un esperto con le armi. Sì, ma non è quello che intendo. Se ti vogliono dare l'idea di giocare con uno inesperto con le armi o vogliono ridurre un po' il combattimento a qualcosa di al di sotto del genere action, va benissimo. Il problema non è la scelta, l'importante è come lo fai. Anche se mi fai una cosa che deve essere intesa solo parzialmente come un combat system action, lo devi comunque rendere bene. Anche se vuoi un personaggio volutamente impacciato e limitato, però deve essere comunque divertente da giocare allo stesso modo. È quello il punto. Perciò il mio dubbio resta, indipendentemente dalla centralità dei combattimenti. Comunque, ve l'ho detto ragazzi, sono più positivo di prima riguardo a questo gioco qua. Sembra davvero interessante e... non vedo l'ora di giocarci. Fatemi sapere anche voi un po' che cosa ne pensate, ok?